Hello kids, it's Papa, and just like I promised you, I've got another X-Men adventure to tell you about, and this is the one with Submariner. You remember him. Normally, he's an opponent against the Fantastic Four, but this time we see him in an adventure with the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So let's go. Here's the cover of the story, and we read the title Submariner joins the evil mutants. And look, he's flying through the air with his powerful muscles. Behind him, there's a gigantic magnet, which means that Magneto is there, along with Mastermind and the Toad. And here are Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And then, of course, here are the X-Men. There's Professor X and the Iceman, uh, Beast, Marvel Girl, Cyclops, and the Angel. They're all waiting for this big battle to start. Okay, but before the fight, we've got some fun activities going on at Professor X's school. It looks like they're having dinner. And look, Hank is reaching across the table. What's going on there? All right, the editor says even superior mutants with supernatural powers have to eat dinner the same as we do. And that's where our story begins, in the dining hall of the mysterious building which houses the X-Men. Well, while Hank is using bad table manners and reaching across the table, Cyclops lifts his sunglasses and shoots a power beam at him. He says, "Hold it, Hank. You know our rule. No reaching across the table for anything." Hank says, "Ow! Is it imperative that you resort to such drastic measures just to emphasize a point, Scott?" And here's Warren. He says, "This is the first time I've seen Cyclops smile in months. Old Scott should do it more often." Professor X says, "It was a delicious meal, Jean. Thank you for helping out on the cook's day off." Jean says, "I was glad to, Professor." Look what's going on down here. Bobby Drake is using his ice power to create some a la mode for his pie. That means some ice cream. He says, "While no one's looking, I'll use my icing power to make some pie a la mode." All right. And look, Hank is even reading a math book at the table. He must like math a whole lot more than I do. So, Bobby is beginning to take a big bite out of his pie. He says, boy, if there's one thing I like better than pie and ice cream, it's more pie and ice cream. I'll just shut my eyes and enjoy the bite." Chomp! What? Look, the pie lifts out of his hand. What's going on? He says, "Some wise guy's going to get himself a fistful of knuckles." Jean, what's going on? Bobby Drake, you know how Professor X feels about table manners. Next time, use your fork. So Jean uses her telekinetic powers to lift that pie away from Bobby's hands. So he's taught to use a fork next time. That's a good lesson to learn. We should eat our food with table utensils, unless they're like pizza and they're meant to be eaten with fingers, right? Okay, Warren says, "Gosh, Professor, sometimes when I listen to all the kidding around, it's hard to believe we're really a group of Homo superior mutants." Professor X says, "It's natural for you to feel that way, Warren. After all, except for the fact that each of us possesses a unique superpower, we're no different from ordinary Homo sapiens." Jean asks, "I wonder if there are many more mutants living among us whom we don't suspect." Professor X says, "I believe there are, Jean. In fact, that's our mission, to locate them before they're found by the evil mutants." And look, he's reading a newspaper, and you can see a picture of Submariner and a question. Where is Submariner? Professor X goes on, so much has been written about Prince Namor, the Submariner, lately. I wonder if he too might not be a mutant. If he is, what a powerful ally he would be for the X-Men, and what a dangerous foe he would be if he joined Magneto's evil mutants. We cannot chance it. We must find Submariner. But as fate would have it, at that very moment, on an uncharted island far out to sea, Magneto is thinking the same thing. We can delay no longer. Submariner must be found. But here comes the Toad, hopping along. He says, "But he's too strong, Master. What if he won't obey you?" Magneto says, "Silence, Toad. Have you forgotten my power? He shall obey, Magneto." So far, the X-Men have foiled me at every turn, but with the Submariner serving me, I'll defeat them once and for all. I shall choose my most awesome weapons. Namor will have to yield to me. Suddenly, incredibly, one of the most feared of all the X-Men appears in Magneto's doorway. Toad jumps away. He says, "It's Cyclops. Run, Master, he's raising his visor." Magneto says, "Bah, I'll blast him to smithereens first." And look, he fires his gun, and this green ray shoots out away from him. But look, the ray goes right through this vision of Cyclops. He says, "The ray went right through him. What new power has the accursed teenager developed?" But with nothing to check it, Magneto's mighty ray travels through the great hall, past the mutant called Mastermind, who recoils just in time. And the mighty ray keeps going. And another of Magneto's allies, seeing the deadly ray, has but one thought in mind: to make sure it doesn't strike his sister. And so the super swift Quicksilver suddenly streaks through the castle. He says, "Wanda, I've got to reach Wanda." And then a split second before the ray can touch her, Quicksilver hurls the Scarlet Witch to safety. Wanda cries out, "Pietro, you saved me." But look, the ray hits these bricks and destroys them. It would have been terrible if Wanda had been struck by that ray. Wanda says, "What was it, Pietro? Are the X-Men attacking us again? How did they find us? Where is Magneto?" Pietro answers, "I do not know, Wanda, but whoever dared to do this thing will pay for it. I have pledged my life to guard you, my sister." Is that what you would do, Conrad? Are you guarding your sister? I know you are. I know you take good care of Lucy. But when they reach Magneto, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver find that, look, the Magneto is using his magnetic power against Mastermind. Mastermind is explaining, "I was just practicing my illusions, Magneto. I meant no harm." Oh! Magneto says, "This magnetic power blast is only a small sample of what I'll do if you ever again dare to practice one of your illusions on me." Wanda says, "Thank heavens it was only an accident. The X-Men aren't attacking us." And then Magneto sits in his chair and says, "The X-Men, that reminds me. I've got to find Submariner before they do. Stay back now, all of you." Thus, the leader of the evil mutants, whose brain power is second only to that of Professor X, transforms all his vast mental energy into an illusory figure of himself and sends it forth. He says, "Now, while my body remains here, my mind shall go forth unhampered to seek the mutant Sea Prince." And so look, his body remains in the chair, but this illusion of his body goes forward, and he can travel mentally. That's an unusual power, isn't it? It's not related to magnetism at all, but this is just a story, right? So back at Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters in the top secret danger room, we see the Beast practicing and avoiding many of the obstacles that Professor X is sending his way. Professor X says, "Well done, Hank. Though we call you the Beast, your skill and agility far exceed that of any member of the animal kingdom." Beast says, "Of course, sir. In all fairness to our four-footed friends, they never had you for a teacher." And look at him. He's balancing on this high wire on top of a stack of balls, while at the same time dodging missiles that are shooting all around him. Professor X says, "All of you continue with your practice until the bell rings. I shall return shortly." Angel says, "We've plenty of tests to keep us busy while you're gone, Professor." And look, Angel is swooping through this lasso that Iceman is wielding. And Iceman says, "Cyclops will keep us on our toes as usual, sir." Cyclops says, "I think I'm finally getting my power beam under complete control." Look, he's using his power beam, but he's narrowing it so it just hits this cable without shooting anything else. And over here we have Marvel Girl practicing her telekinesis, and she says, "Now I'll try this with my eyes shut." Then, in the seclusion of his study, the man with the mightiest brain on Earth prepares to search for Submariner, even as his arch foe Magneto is doing. And so, again, Professor X stays in his chair while his ectoplasmic form leaves him. And now we see his form walking into the ocean. He says, "If only my physical body were as free as my mental image, but even the great mutant power of my brain is not enough to cure my helpless flesh and blood legs." Because it is a projection of his mind which is traveling, it can survive as easily under the sea as in the air. And so his dramatic search begins. And he says to himself, if he is anywhere in this area, I should be able to sense his presence, talking about the Submariner. Well, all right, and turning the page, we see Professor X down in the bottom of the sea, surrounded by strange sea creatures. He says, "I do sense another presence, but it is an evil one coming closer and closer. It is Magneto. It can be no other. He too must be seeking Prince Namor, but I shall not let him find me here. When next we meet, it shall be at a time of my own choosing. I'll return to my study and let Magneto finish my quest for me." A short time later, little dreaming that Professor X knows of his presence, Magneto appears. He says, "I'm getting closer to Submariner. I can feel it. And when I find him, I must be extremely cautious. His power may even be the equal of mine. I must never permit him to challenge my superiority." And so Magneto's astral image continues to go through the undersea. And look, he sees a castle in the distance. Finally, guided by the extrasensory perception of his mutant brain, Magneto sights his objective. He says to himself, "A regal castle under the sea. I've found the Submariner." There he is. Never have I seen such anger, such inhuman rage. And Submariner is angry. He says, "Again the Fantastic Four have defeated me. Again the girl I love has spurned me. Though I am Prince of the Deep, Monarch of the Sea, my titles are hollow. My kingdom is empty and meaningless." He's talking about one of the other adventures that we've read about Submariner and the Fantastic Four, when he kidnapped Sue Storm, but she still professed her love for Reed Richards. He picks up a large statue and throws it. He says, "What does my castle mean? What use is my crown to me? Though my power is almost without limit, I live here like an exile." His guards run away from him because they're afraid of his anger. He says, "The humans have taken from me everything I held most dear. Because of them, my people have deserted me. Only you, a handful of loyal followers, remain. Begone! The very sight of you reminds me of my bygone days of glory. But those days will return again, and when they do, Prince Namor shall rule both the sea and the land. Everything that lives on earth shall pay me homage." Big words. Magneto shows up. He says his anger is too great. I shall not approach him yet. Instead, I'll get another to do my bidding. Here's one of Submariner's lackeys, and he's looking around the corner, peering at Submariner. He's thinking, I detect a presence behind me, so filled with evil it chills my blood. He turns, he says, "Who? What are you?" Magneto says, "I am Magneto. That is all you need know. I am here to give you power beyond your wildest dreams." And then he thinks to himself, I have chosen well. I can sense the greed and the envy in this man's heart. He is perfect. Magneto says, "How would you like to replace Prince Namor as ruler of Atlantis?" "Me? How?" says this lackey. Magneto says, "Just do as I say. Give the Submariner a message from me. Repeat it exactly as I tell you to." Then he says, "Why should I trust you? What kind of message?" Well, I wouldn't trust Magneto. Would you? Well, this guy is rather foolish, and he's going to do what Magneto says. Magneto says, "Do as I say. Give the Submariner a message from me. Repeat it exactly as I tell you to." Oh, we've already been through that, haven't we? Haha. All right. So Magneto says, "It is a message that will make Submariner leave here to join me, and with him gone, a clever man might easily steal power." So he's thinking about it. Meanwhile, back at his headquarters, Professor X comes out of his trance. He says, "Gather around me, my X-Men. We're about to begin a new mission." Iceman says, "Oh boy, at last." So all the X-Men gather around Professor X. And Professor X says, "Unknown to Magneto, I have been mentally following him. He has located the Submariner and is trying to make him an ally. Even now, Magneto is returning to his hidden isle to await Prince Namor's answer." Iceman says, "But how do you know where Magneto's island is, sir?" Professor X remembers. Some days ago, a freighter in the North Atlantic reported its compass seemed to have gone mad. I investigated the report. Later, the ship sighted a mysterious island with a huge magnetic device emitting strange rays. See the island? See this huge magnet? We saw that on the cover of the story. Do you remember?" Professor X continues, "And then, before the crew could be sure they weren't dreaming or having a mass hallucination, the entire freighter seemed to be lifted by an irresistible magnetic force and was finally put down 50 miles south of Bermuda." Beast goes on. He says, "I surmise it wasn't difficult for you to put two and two together, Professor." Professor says, "Not at all, Hank. And now we're going to charter a sailboat and take a little cruise. And if we happen to find Magneto's island at the same time, we'll try not to be too surprised." A short time later, the strangest crew ever to man a sailing vessel takes to sea, and after a few hours, Angel is flying around and he says, "Still no sign of land from here, Professor." And Angel is flying amongst the birds. So Professor X says, return to the ship, Angel. Professor X then says, our TV camera can see a greater distance than the Angel can. Lift it as high as possible by your telekinetic power, Jean. Jean says, yes, sir. And so look, her telekinetic power raises the video camera up while Bobby is controlling the viewfinder. He says, no luck, Professor. The remote controlled TV screen still shows no trace of an island. Very well then, Hank, you may retrieve the camera for us. So instead of just having Marvel Girl return the camera with her telekinetic power, he gives the Beast a task to do. And so the Beast jumps out and he grabs it with his toes. Isn't that silly? He says, I'd be delighted, sir. I've been perfecting this maneuver for days now. But there's a warning. Someone hollers, Beast, look out. The rope is frayed. It's splitting. And then he says, correction, it split. And look, the Beast has grabbed the camera, but he's plummeting to the deck below. Marvel Girl says, I'll get you, Hank, but oh, I can't hold you. You're too heavy. So her mental power is not strong enough to prevent Hank from falling, but she at least slows him down. And Iceman says, leave it to me, Jean. What's Iceman gonna do? Well, look, he creates a big pile of snow. He says, nothing like a soft, mushy pile of snow for a fella to land in. Don't y'all wish y'all could have a big old pile of snow to jump in? Would be a lot of fun, although very cold. And so, Cyclops says, lucky Marvel Girl was able to hold Hank long enough for you to whip up that snow, Bobby. And so Hank lands safely in a pile of snow. And then Hank comes up out from under the snow and says, here's the professor's camera, Jean, somewhat the worse for wear. Cyclops says, next time, knock off the grandstand plays, Hank. A camera like that costs money. Hank says, what a come down. I thought you were worried about me. Well, I agree with Hank. I think that's kind of rude of Cyclops to be more concerned about the camera than his friend. Oh well, all's good. So, Angel asks, are you sure we're on the right course, sir? Or could Magneto have set up some sort of screen which conceals his island? Professor says, no screen can prevent me from sensing his presence. Our course is true. We'll find him yet. Meanwhile, at the Submariner's undersea castle, the seeds which Magneto planted begin to bear fruit. All right, the servant says, by your leave, sire, there is one man who could help you in your battle with mankind. Submariner says, bah, Prince Namor needs no help from any man. But, the servant continues, he is no mere human, my prince. He is a mutant, one of the most powerful on Earth, the same as you are. Submariner answers, I, a mutant? Why has that thought never occurred to me before? The servant says, his name is Magneto and he hates the humans as much as you do. I can tell you where to find him, sire. Namor says, the last time I took an ally, I regretted it. But if Magneto is a fellow mutant... And so, within minutes, a sleek undersea racer heads for Magneto's island. And Submariner is driving it. He says, I must see this fellow mutant for myself. I must learn what his power is. Magneto's island is indeed well hidden. Even with directions, it was hard to find. And here comes Magneto. He says, Submariner, I knew you'd come. I am Magneto. This is my island. Submariner says, silence. None speak in the presence of royalty without first being recognized. My goodness, what a snot. I bet Magneto isn't going to like that attitude. He says, before we talk, I shall scout this island and make sure I have not entered some sort of hidden trap. Magneto thinks to himself, all I heard about him is true. He is every inch a monarch, and he's very sure of his strength. But I must find a way to influence him, to control him. Then Magneto reaches out and grabs the Scarlet Witch. Ah, you are what I need. Once he sets his eyes on the Scarlet Witch, he'll be putty in our hands. Quicksilver says, let my sister go, Magneto, or by thunder, I will... Magneto cuts him off. She's in no danger, Quicksilver. I merely want her to meet someone. Wanda says, it's all right, Pietro. We must trust Magneto. We both owe him our lives. And then she sees him. She thinks how noble he looks, how slim, yet muscular. He's fascinating. Submariner says, everything on this isle is powered by magnetism. Wanda thinks, why would someone so fine, so masterful, want to ally himself with the evil Magneto? Well, it is not for me to question. I'll approach him, tap him on the shoulder, and then, oh no, I carelessly made a gesture. It will cause my hex power to operate. So she gestures, the hex power goes off, and look, she hollers, Submariner, look out! Submariner realizes it's a burst of high voltage electricity. He reaches out and he grabs the cables. Scarlet Witch realizes he's ripping out the cable wires, which I accidentally hexed, and he's doing it with his bare hands. Quicksilver shows up. Wanda, what happened? Wanda says, it is all right, Pietro. Prince Namor was subjected to a deadly amount of electricity, and it did no more than jolt him. Submariner looks at Wanda. He says, you are the cause of that? She answers, yes, but I did not mean it. Sometimes my hex power gets out of hand. I am the Scarlet Witch, and this is my brother Quicksilver. Quicksilver says, I still do not trust him, Wanda. And then Mastermind says, so that's the famous Submariner. He's just a man in swimming trunks. What a disappointment. The Toad says, see the wings on his feet? How small they are. Of what use can they be? Magneto says, fools! His strength is that of 100 humans. He has no need of costume or weapons. With such an ally beside me, I could conquer the world. Can you imagine having Magneto and his band of evil mutants and Submariner? They would be powerful foes against the X-Men. How could the X-Men stop them all? Well, that is the subject of our next episode. When I come back again, I'll finish the story, and we'll all marvel at the X-Men's exploits. All right, Conrad and Lucy and Caleb, I love you very much, and I hope you're enjoying these stories about the X-Men. Bye-bye for now.